The question is that the motion be agreed to. Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to speak on these three bills, the New Zealand Public Health and Disability Amendment Bill, the Mental Health Commission Amendment Bill and the Charities Amendment Bill number 2, which, as the Minister pointed out, are the bills formerly known as the Crown Entities Reform Bill. Now, on this side of the House, we actually agree with the decision to split that single bill into three bills. We think each of those component bills are quite distinct in their nature, and it's for that reason, Mr Speaker, I'd like to make it clear that on this side of the House we believe there should be three questions put so that members have the opportunity to make their views known on all three bills, and I appreciate the positive affirmation I'm getting from the Speaker about that. So we look forward to being able to vote on each of these three bills. Mr Speaker, as was pointed out by members on this side throughout the debate on these bills, although superficially there are some similarities in that essentially they legislate for the merger and acquisition of a number of public entities, which is I suppose, the only approach that this government has to the public sector. The outcome from those mergers is quite different in each case. And we've been very supportive of the establishment of the Health Promotion Agency, which of course will be the result of the merger of the Health Sponsorship Council and ALEC. Now, the Health Sponsorship Council, of course, was originally established to support those organisations, to promote activities that reduce the harm caused by tobacco. But people will probably remember it most for its role in supporting those organisations that had hitherto been dependent upon tobacco industry sponsorship. And I don't want to, I suppose, traverse all the different organisations that receive tobacco industry sponsorship, but needless to say, some of them seemed quite perverse when sports and ballet companies, for instance, even orchestras and bands were supported by the tobacco company. You have to think, what would be the performance of those sports teams actually be like if all their members were smokers? What would be the performance of a ballet troupe be like if all its members were smokers? And what indeed would be the performance of the woodwind section or the brass section of a band be like if all of its members were smokers? So it was unusual, I think, that all those organisations were so dependent on the well, I'm coming to that, Ms Dyson, that so many organisations were dependent on the tobacco industry. And I know there was a lot of nervousness amongst those organisations that they would not be able to find replacement sponsorship if they were unable to get that support from the tobacco industry. And what the Health Sponsorship Council did was, I suppose, in a way, to be a kind of nicotine patch for those organisations. It helped them wean themselves off that addiction they had to funding from the tobacco industry. And I note, Mr Speaker, that the Cancer Society, when it made its submission to the Select Committee on this bill, the Cancer Society submitted that part of the Health Promotion Agency's core business should be addressing the issue of alcohol sponsorship, which my colleague Ms Dyson alluded to moments ago. And I think this is a worthy consideration that Parliament should take the opportunity at the next possible opportunity to consider the Health Promotion Agency's role in reducing the impact of alcohol sponsorship, because what getting rid of tobacco sponsorship was about was setting was a public health measure to reduce not the availability, but the normality of tobacco in our communities. And I guess what the Cancer Society is getting at is reducing the normality of the presence of alcohol, in sporting events. And I mentioned during one debate on this bill, student associations have a very close relationship with the liquor industry, and there's a wide range of other organisations that do probably feel dependent on sponsorship from the alcohol industry. I think the Cancer Society has a good point that is worthy of debate at the very least, and that is around the health promotion agency's role in reducing the influence of alcohol sponsorship and assisting organisations through that same transition that had to be made when tobacco sponsorship was brought to an end. So that's obviously something for Parliament to consider in the future, but certainly the establishment of the HPA makes that initiative far more likely, especially seen as the expertise of both ALAC and the Health Sponsorship Council will be brought together. Mr. Speaker, whilst we support the creation of the Health Promotion Agency, I'd like to point out some of the inconsistencies in government policy, and you simply have to look at the budget that was announced last week to see how inconsistent this government is on the issue of public health, because whilst it's establishing the HPA, it is also cutting $80 million worth of public health programs over the next 4 years. So these, we have no idea, because of course the budget documents are purposefully vague as to which programs those are that are being cut, and I look forward to hearing what the Minister of Health can tell the Health Committee about which programs those are. But of course these are the public health programs which actually save us money in the health sector in the future. It's an investment in the health and well-being of New Zealanders for the future, and it will save our health system money. But this government isn't interested in the future. This government is interested in the here and now, and it has sucked money out of those public health programs to put into its pet projects, its politically motivated projects in the health sector. So very, very inconsistent approach on public health from this national government. Now, the second bill that we are debating this evening is the Mental Health Commission Amendment Bill. I don't have too much to say about this bill, Mr. Speaker, other than to say that we look forward to the release of the second mental health blueprint, which I understand is due to be launched on June the 13th. And that will be an important step forward. Of course, that will actually be the final act of the Mental Health Commission, and that blueprint document will, of course, have to be picked up and guided through its infancy through the Health and Disability Commission. I know a number of submitters to the Select Committee expressed some concern and disappointment about that. But that is the nature of what this government is about. They have no particular plan for growing the economy, and therefore what they have to do to balance the books is to do these little tinkering mergers within the public sector to save a penny here and a dollar there, so that they can make up for their abysmal failure to grow the economy and bring the revenue in that is required to run these public agencies properly, Mr. Speaker. I think it reflects the incompetent management of the economy by this government, the negligence that we have seen from John Key. That's what we're seeing in these bills, which really are tinkering around the edges and will save very, very little, and will have, I think the Minister actually referred to the fact that these are structural changes that will have no impact on the outcomes for these organisations, that will have no positive public health impact, it will have no positive impact on the delivery of mental health services. And as my colleagues will get to later on, as for the changes to the the Charities Commission, well, that's just utterly negative. But it's driven by a desperate need within this government to find any little cuts that it can to make up for the appalling lack of effort in growing the economy and bringing in the revenue required. Mr. Speaker, we have a range of positions on these bills, being that they are 3 different bills which will become clear at voting time.
Chris Hockenvold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.